afternoon, everyone, and welcome to another session of the Analyst by Vajiram and Ravi. The handout for today's discussion has been placed in the description box. In today's session, we begin with Parliament's passage of the Prevention of Insults to National Honour Amendment Bill of 2026, where we'll discuss the key provisions, the rationale behind the amendment, and its constitutional significance. We will then discuss an important editorial on digital public infrastructure, which argues that AI should become the fourth pillar of India's DPI ecosystem. After these two analytical discussions, we'll take up a mains value addition segment on fast-track courts, followed by our prelims pointers covering CWMA, SHANTI Initiative, Cloudbursts, and the Assam Floods. So let us begin with our first topic, which is the passage of the Prevention of Insults to National Honours Amendment Bill of 2026 by the Parliament. Firstly, let us look at the background of this Act, wherein the Prevention of Insults to National Honours Act of 1971 was passed in the aftermath of the Indian involvement in the Bangladesh Liberation War of 1971. What happened in this war? In the aftermath, there was a lot of nationalism and a feeling of patriotism amongst the citizens of India. That is why this act was passed in order to promote or motivate the feeling of respect towards the constitution, towards the national flag, national anthem. Now, what happened as a result? There are two sections basically which are of importance for our examination. First one is the section 2 of this act. This section 2 deals with national flag and the constitution. So whenever it says that if anybody tries to bring to disrespect the national flag or the constitution of India, he shall be punished with 3 years of imprisonment or a fine or even both in certain circumstances. Now the section 3 deals with the national anthem only. So it says that whenever anybody tries to prevent the singing of national anthem or create disturbance to any assembly which is singing national anthem, in that case, there shall be the same imprisonment of 3 years or fine or both. So now the amendment is talking about extending this protection which is being given to national anthem to also include the national song of India, which is the Vande Mataram. So what happens as a result? Firstly, let us see why did government bring this bill? Why does government feel that there was a need to include the national song? First is the constitutional history, which the government is stating that when on 24th of January 1950, just 2 days before we became a republic, Dr. Rajendra Prasad, in the debates or in the speech of his Constituent Assembly, he said that Vande Mataram holds equal honor and respect. It should command equal respect in the minds and in the eyes of the citizens as the national anthem. But it was more of a rhetoric and speech unless we are extending that protection which is being given to the national anthem also to the national song. So the laws, they were not reflective of this assurance which was being spoken by the freedom fighters of our nation. That is why government felt that it is important to extend this protection to the national song as well. Then the government is giving the historical significance. So Bankim Chandra Chattopadhyay, he has written this in his book Anand Math. As a result, it became ultimately a part of Swadeshi movement also. It was given a slightly poetic touch by Rabindranath Tagore, who sung this in some of the INC meetings that were taking place, the International Congress meetings that were taking place at that time. Ultimately, it became a symbol of anti-colonial struggle because it became a slogan and it was widely spoken and utilized by the freedom fighters. Now, this makes it important that we give equal legal respect to this as well. Then it is also a symbol of national unity because it motivates patriotism. It is a reflective of the national integration because of the first few paragraphs which are integrating and promoting a patriotic feeling amongst the citizens of this nation. Then also the constitutional feelings or the constitutional nationalism. So what is the constitutional nationalism? Wherein the respect for the constitutional provisions increases in the hearts of the citizens of the nation. So that is being promoted. Now, why is it controversial? Firstly, let us understand that these terms like national anthem, national song, these are nowhere mentioned in the constitution text. As a result, they have been continuing because of the conventions which have been there, because of also the Constituent Assembly debates or the proceedings which were widely discussing about all of these. So then there are 5 stanzas. Original text, the complete text of Vande Mataram has 5 stanzas or 5 paragraphs. Amongst them, the later ones are having references to some religious deities of one religion. Now this brings in the criticism that this is promoting monotheistic beliefs, that one religion is getting importance in this text. But what has happened that our polity has accepted only the first 2 stanzas. As a governmental structure or even in general public, the first 2 paragraphs is what is commonly spoken and what is more kind of known. Now, what is the constitutional debate surrounding this entire topic of the national song? There are certain articles in the constitution which are giving us different rights. For example, one section of the fundamental rights, there are 2 articles within that. First one of consideration is the Article 19, Clause 1, Subclause A, which gives to the citizens the freedom of speech and expression. Then comes the Article 25, which gives the citizens the freedom to practice, profess and propagate their own religion. Both of these freedoms then come another fundamental duty under Article 51A, Subclause A. The fundamental duty asks us to respect Constitution, respect national flag and national anthem also. Now you must be noticing that there is no mention of national song. But now the same respect or the same authority has also been given to the national song here under our amendment. So the debate is basically surrounding this idea that our freedom of speech and expression and our freedom of religion, it should not come in conflict with this fundamental duty that we have towards our national symbols. After this debate, there are also 2 Supreme Court judgments which we must be considering. One is the Bijo Emmanuel case, wherein this particular community, students belonging to this particular community, when the national anthem was being played, they stood up, but they refused to sing the national anthem. As a result, the case reached the Supreme Court because those students were expelled out of the school. Now, Supreme Court in this case stated that they were standing respectfully and they were not causing any disrespect. Merely not singing the national anthem is not causing disrespect to the national anthem. Ultimately, those students, they were taken back into the school. Another point of consideration is this case of Shyam Narayan Chowsky case. What has happened in 2016, at that time the Supreme Court had given a directive that the national anthem will be played across all cinemas before the beginning of all the films that are going to be played there. But ultimately, later on, it realized its own shortcoming that this kind of patriotism or nationalism is a feeling which is more emotional driven. It cannot be and should not be imposed from top down. Later on, Supreme Court modified the order, made it optional, and court observed that patriotism should not become forced ritualism. Now, what are the criticisms of the bill? What are the debates that are surrounding the bill? First is that of over-criminalization. that when you are criminalizing such offences, it is leading to more judicial delays, more pendency of cases in the judiciary. Then comes the debate that the existing law already was sufficient and there was no need to extend, because what is happening is even proving the cases of disrespect to national anthem, it is very difficult. The conviction in such cases is very low. So ultimately it is not giving us as many results as the kind of procedures that we are putting this process through. Then there is the possibility of misuse, because there are vague terms used. What do you mean by the term prevention? What do you mean by causing disturbance? These undefined and vague terms, they are leading to unnecessary cases in the Supreme Court, and it will be difficult for us to prove that yes, this act caused some kind of prevention, this caused some kind of disturbance. Then it is coming in contradiction with some of the policies which we as a nation are having, which we as a government are focusing on. So we are, over the years, we are focusing on bringing in more governance and less presence of government. But when we are enacting such a bill which is leading to more number of cases, it is coming in conflict with our Jan Vishwas philosophy. So what is this philosophy about? So basically under this philosophy, government is trying to decriminalize whatever petty offences were previously criminalized under the previous acts. So for example, the petty economic offences, they have been decriminalized because the processes are long and the convictions, they are very rare in such cases. What are the debates that are surrounding this particular act? The debate is that of nationalism versus constitutional patriotism. So what is some part of the scholars, they are saying that when it comes to patriotism, patriotism should be towards the constitutional values. Values such as liberty, equality, fraternity. Those constitutional values, if the citizens, they have a respect towards them, then there is no need for ritualism. The second debate is regarding the criminalization of society. The third debate is regarding the fundamental rights versus duties, wherein the citizens, they have certain claims, they have certain freedoms to express publicly. But whenever in public sphere they get to be monitored, in that situation their rights come in conflict with their duties. Then comes the issue of symbolism in nation building. So whenever we are talking about such issues, we cannot be focusing on mere symbolism, rather the respect has to be from within. Now coming to the larger happening that has been the monsoon session of Parliament this year. So not only this bill, but we already know that the Public Examination Prevention of Unfair Means Amendment Bill has also been passed. There are other justice reforms that are being proposed. There are governance reforms, for example, the amendments to the IT Act, so as to bring in more convenience to the lives of citizens. They are under proposal and they are under consideration. Also, the delimitation bill is expected to be introduced under this session only. Now we have put forth a mains practice question for you that you can later on practice. It is asking about the relationship between the fundamental rights and the fundamental duties often becomes visible in the legislation concerning the national symbols. The national symbols include all the symbols. For example, the national anthem, the national flag, the constitution, and now also the national song, discussed in the context of this recent Amendment Act of 2026. Now this another editorial that we have in today's newspaper is talking about making AI the fourth pillar of India's digital public infrastructure. Before understanding what this editor he is projecting or trying to promote, we should firstly begin by seeing that what is actually India's digital public infrastructure. So we firstly need to understand the three basic pillars. First is the India Stack 1.0. Ultimately, we are right now working on India Stack 2.0 that we'll also be seeing. So first amongst them was the identity layer. So for example, let us take understand it by taking an example. For if you say you had to begin a business, so what all would you be needing? You would be needing the identity related things. you would be needing some access to digital infrastructure, for example, internet. Then you would also be needing certain verification mechanisms wherein you can identify or kind of ensure that whatever information that you're receiving is verified. Now, let us look at it from this angle now, that Aadhaar, it made sure that the identity related things, they are taken care of. Earlier, if you were to purchase a SIM, you would require different documents. If you would say want to take a loan, you would require different documents. But now there is one-stop solution that is acting for such a huge population. Then comes the payment related thing. So what has UPI done? Basically, it has made available such infrastructure to the public wherein instant payments are taking place. Earlier, there were bank-specific mechanisms. The interoperability was very less. The transactions, they used to be costly. Now it is almost free and instant and interoperable as well. So what happens here, that the account aggregator, he is basically taking in data from multiple layers. Some of the financial data of the citizen would be lying with the banks. Some would be lying with the insurance companies and some other with the mutual funds. Now they will aggregate this data at one place, and with the permission of citizens, this data will be then shared. Now, what this editorial now argues, that we are lying in the digital Corey trap. What is this trap about? So basically, he is saying that what happens, for example, a country is rich in the raw material of iron ore. But this country is exporting all its iron ore, but there are other countries which are good in the manufacturing of cars, in the manufacturing of electronics as well. Now, what these countries would do, they would process the same raw material and they would sell the finished product back to this country at a much higher rate. In turn, they would end up making billions of dollars. The same situation is happening with India, wherein India has a huge, firstly, the digital data that we have is very huge. We also have engineering capacities. We also have R&D that is taking place here. Then we also have a good market, which is a good feedback mechanism. But are we utilizing all of this? No. What we are doing is, we are letting the other private firms of foreign countries like USA process all of this data and then give to us the finished products in terms of services. Those services are very expensive. We are paying for the subscriptions, and that is taking away a huge amount of wealth. He is basically comparing this same to the earlier situation wherein we were exporting raw cotton and we were buying back very expensive imported clothing. So India, he says, exports raw user data, research talent, then the labeling labor also to the Silicon Valley. What we are importing? We are importing the finished AI capabilities and dollar-priced API rates from the American tech companies. So now it is being argued that AI should be made India's fourth public infrastructure. So what is being said, that earlier, say electricity, it was a luxury. Later on, it was made a public infrastructure part. Then came maybe internet, which was also a luxury at one point of time. Then also it became a part of public infrastructure, just like your roads are a part of your public infrastructure. Similarly, AI, which is right now a raw material, or what you can say a basic product that is going into multiple services. If, say, you consider teaching, you consider business, you consider government, you consider, say, medicine, there is no field that is left where AI is not being used. Therefore, he says that it should also be made a part of public infrastructure. Now, the person is also making a very clear distinction that the government need not make very huge investments. For example, if we take the example of UPI, was government the one who has come up with Phone Pay or Google Pay? No. What government did, it provided only the unified interface And above that interface, above this infrastructure, now the private sector came in and put in the innovation front. They understood the demands and they made these products which ultimately reached to the consumers at a large scale. Now, what are going to be the 4 pillars that the person is advocating regarding the artificial intelligence digital public infrastructure? First is going to be cheap computing. So there are graphic processing units. This infrastructure is very expensive. So there are large firms that can afford to build these infrastructures, but then there are startups which need some kind of hand holding by the government before they can venture into the larger operations. So basically, government needs to aggregate the demand and then bring in common GPU hubs, which can later on be utilized by the private players. Then it is arguing for some kind of open models, wherein it is saying that the language models, they need to be made specific to the Indian demands. We need not use the models which are being developed by the foreign countries. Then comes the open intelligence interface. So what happens that there will be one interface, for example, there is UPI, then there will be one interface which will act as the basic unit, and above that everything else, all new innovations will function beyond this. There will be many models above this, but all of them will be interoperable. Then he is talking about some affordable AI tokens. What happens within this? For example, afterwards, after making all of these infrastructural innovations and providing them, still there would be funding required. So maybe the government can come up with some token kind of initiative. These will be provided selectively to startups, students, researchers. Certain sections, for example, farmers. The vulnerable sections, we can be prioritizing them while providing all of these infrastructural benefits. Another argument that is being proposed is that this AI infrastructure which we are planning to bring in, this will not be an alternative or this will not be counterproductive to the existence of DPI. Rather, it will aid the development of DPI in multiple ways. What are the ways? For example, if you take the lending interface, so if we use AI within this, what will happen? That the land records, the GST data, everything related to the financial aspect of that person or that firm will be evaluated by AI. This information will directly be provided, which will make the lending process very seamless and very quick. Then coming to ONDC, now no matter the same platform is being provided to very small shopkeepers, still they are not able to take the maximum benefit out of it. So what is being proposed? That if they will get data regarding the pricing mechanisms, regarding say how to maintain the inventories, how much of inventories to be maintained, then this process will become very easier for the small shopkeepers. What are the preferences of the consumers? If this is already conveyed by AI to the local shopkeepers. Then coming to the health aspect, wherein the role that AI will play will maybe, it will aid in telemedicine. It can help in teleconsultation. It can make interoperable records. For example, a patient visiting multiple doctors for different considerations, now all of his data will be compiled at one place, analyzed by the artificial intelligence tools, which will help the doctors aid him better. Then coming to the Bhashini language DPI, what is happening here that if we are utilizing AI, then the interoperability between all of these 22 languages, the voice recognition patterns, or the governance aspect which is taking place through the voice mechanisms, it will become much better. Now it is being proposed that this AI translation rail, it can break all the barriers which are right now existing in the language profile. Then coming to the climatic DPIs, if we are using this in say agriculture, then what will happen that the crop diagnostics, what all are the issues with the crops that are right now there. If there is some pest that is infesting the crop, then how to deal with it? How much is the requirement of irrigation? When and how to sow the seeds? All of this information, the land mapping, the mobility, all of this, if it is provided to the farmers in advance, it can help them much better. It will also help in our global DPI diplomacy. We can maybe make it a tool of our soft power diplomacy and work upon exporting our own services. Also, it will promote digital sovereignty because of the concerns related to, say, the privacy regarding the data of the citizens that is being collected by the foreign firms. Then it can help us in ensuring that all of these concerns are met at once. Now we'll discuss the challenges and the bottlenecks which are still remaining in the DPI infrastructure. The first challenge is that of exclusion and that of digital divide. So what is happening that 24/7 internet connectivity, that is not seamless across India. There are still issues. Then comes the biometric mismatch. For example, in the Aadhaar case. So if a person's fingerprint or his iris scan, it happens to not match, and the fingerprint, they can also become faded away for certain sections, for example, the elderly or the manual laborers. In that case, it can lead to exclusion from very important schemes. Then comes the denied entitlements as a result of the failure of these biometric mechanisms. Then there is also digital illiteracy that is existing to a great extent. Then comes the issue of concentration and the private dominance. So we have seen this in the case of UPI, wherein these two big players, they are capturing almost 80% of the market. Now all of this market duopoly, it is existing in the case of UPI or online payments. Then also there is foreign app dominance that can take place. The single points of failure, it can lead to kind of paralysis of this entire payment system. Then comes the issue with data privacy, surveillance and security. So there are two ends. On the one end, government is trying to ensure the security and safety of the citizens. For that, some kind of surveillance becomes important. But then within that concern comes the concern of the citizens regarding their data privacy issues. So we need to develop or work upon the user consent mechanisms. Now these mechanisms, we know that citizens, what they end up doing is they end up clicking to agree all the terms and conditions without even reading them. In those situations, this conflict becomes even more so prevalent. Then comes the state surveillance issues. The concerns regarding how much of interference or how much of involvement, how much of scanning and surveillance is okay when it comes to the privacy or the personal lives of the citizens. Then comes the issue of hardware dependencies. We all know that we are dependent on foreign chips. As a result, what becomes important, that we not only work upon this software development, but rather we also work upon our hardware sovereignty, working on the initiatives like the India Semiconductor Mission, wherein we try to manufacture domestic semiconductors. As a result, we can counter this dependency on imported GPUs, which we right now have. What else can we do as a way forward? That the governance frameworks, they need to be made secure. We need to have grievance redressal mechanisms in place. We need to have security standards in place. Then we need to promote market diversification so that we can ensure that this kind of dominance of some players, some monopoly or duopoly does not become evident in any of the sectors. Then comes the privacy, addressing the privacy related things by embedding privacy enhancing technologies like zero knowledge proofs directly into the protocols of the API to allow verification without exposing any kind of sensitive data which can be there. Now another mains question that we have put forth for you, you can practice this on AI to aid your preparation better. The next topic that we take up for value addition for our mains purposes is this topic that appeared in the Hindu, talking about fast track courts. So basically in this article it was argued that the fast track courts are not a permanent solution to the pendency of cases that is there in the judicial system. So basically it has argued that now the pendency has started to increase even in these courts. So basically these are the courts that are established for some sensitive cases, for some specific segments of society. For instance, the sector of women, the segment of children, they are very sensitive to such cases. So any kind of criminal cases against them, they are referred to the fast track courts. But now we are seeing that these courts in themselves, they are carrying a backlog of nearly 2.4 lakh cases. This is apart from the pendency which is existing in the official judicial system of India, which is 4.8 crore cases. Now we have another term of concern, which is the case clearance rate. In simple terms, it means that how many cases are coming into the judicial system and how many of them are getting disposed of. This rate is below 100%. This means that more number of cases are coming, but less are being disposed of. For instance, in 2025, 1.4 lakh cases came to the fast track courts, while only 66,000 of them were disposed of. This is a point of concern. The next topic that we take up is related to the Kaveri Water Management Authority, which has been in news because of certain recent happenings. So it has directed Karnataka to release waters to Tamil Nadu, but Karnataka has asked for a review of the decision, stating that the monsoon this year, it has not been as good as it used to be. Therefore, this issue becomes important. This is just happening right now, but it is a long-standing issue otherwise. So what is this issue regarding the Kaveri water? Firstly, let us see that this river is flowing. It has its basin in Karnataka, then it involves Tamil Nadu, then it involves the UT of Puducherry, and it also includes certain tributaries from the state of Kerala. So there are 3 states and 1 UT which is involved in this case. What is the constitutional and the legal framework when it comes to such interstate river water disputes? So Article 262 of the Constitution empowers the Parliament to enact laws in this regard whenever any interstate dispute is coming up. The 7th schedule of the Constitution, entry 17, says that water shall be a state subject, but entry 56 states that when it comes to interstate development of waters or rivers, then Parliament can make laws in that regard. Under these provisions, Parliament has enacted the Interstate River Water Dispute Act of 1956. Now what is happening here? Firstly, let us see the Kaveri river as such, because for our prelims examination there can be a technical question that can come up from this aspect. Kaveri river is called as the Ganga of South India. It is an east flowing river. It is draining into the Bay of Bengal. Now rises at Talakaveri in the Brahmagiri hills of Western Ghats in Karnataka. Then it is flowing 800 kilometers before emptying into the Bay of Bengal. What are the basin states? It is Karnataka, Tamil Nadu, Kerala and the UT of Puducherry. The drainage area is also very huge. The major tributaries you need to memorize: Kabini, Hemavati, Harangi, Shimsha. So the list you can memorize basically. What are the major dams? The Krishna Raj Sagar Dam, the Mettur Dam, Kabini Dam, Hemavati Dam and the Harangi Dam. Now what is the economic importance? So this river is acting as a support system to agriculture, to drinking water supply, hydropower generation, fisheries and industries across these states, and that is why such issues arise whenever. So there is a fixed proportion as to how much water is to be released by which state, But whenever such conflict arises because of such necessities which the river is fulfilling, it becomes a point of concern. Regarding this authority, it is a statutory body, you must remember, established by the central government. So it is implementing the Cauvery Water Disputes Tribunal Award and the Supreme Court's judgments. So it is ensuring that the water releases which are supposed to be released on a monthly basis, they are being released by each of the states. It is monitoring the water levels, the reservoir levels, and other technical details it is collecting. Now this Cauvery Water Regulation Committee, it is the technical and the executive branch of the CWMA. So on ground, it is collecting the data related to that. How is the reservoir level? What is the release of water that is being made by the states? All of this data, it is being collected by the CWRC. Any kind of operational issues when it comes to the operationalization of this award, they will be resolved by this authority. It is being stated in the act only. Any collection of data, analysis of data, it will also be done. Submitting of reports and recommendations to the central government, that will also be made by this authority. And any kind of compliance related issue, if it comes up, then that will also be addressed. Now the next topic for our prelims consideration is the SHANTI Initiative that is being talked. So firstly, let us see what is this initiative about. So here is the full form of the initiative: securing holistic advancement through norms, trust and integrity. We must know that this is not an initiative in isolation. Rather, there have been precedents. Earlier, there was the Sagar Initiative, which ultimately led to the Mahasagar Initiative. So what was the Sagar Initiative originally about? It basically is promoting equity in the development. So free, fair, open trade relations, they should be continuing. All kinds of navigation that should be happening through the international waters. This is something that was being talked in the Sagar Initiative. Basically, it was concerned about the Indian Ocean region. Now, these principles, they were extended beyond the Indian Ocean region to include the Indo-Pacific and to include the global south as such under the Mahasagar Initiative. Now, this Mahasagar Initiative, what was the issue with both of them? That they are telling us the principles of how things should be, but how it is to be implemented, the operationalization and the technicalities regarding the regulation of that was not being discussed under these two initiatives. That is why we have come up with the SHANTI Initiative right now to bring in these norms. So what are actually these kind of principles? They are normative in nature. Normative is something which is recommendatory as to how things should be ideally. Now, all of this, we are trying to chart a roadmap regarding the mechanisms under the SHANTI Act. Now, let us look at the launch. So it was launched or unveiled on July of 13th by India's External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar. This is also a part and parcel of our official campaign that we are right now conducting to get ourselves a non-permanent seat in the UNSC for this term of 2028 to 29. Now, what are the key features that we are kind of promoting under this? First is the norms over tonnage, which means that when it comes to applying these principles on ground, we are not only going to look at the size of the economy or the size of the navy of the country. Rather, it doesn't matter whether the player is small or large, everybody should be getting the same rights of free and open passage. Then comes the preferred security partner and first responder, wherein India is trying to become the net security provider in the Indian Ocean region. Then comes the demand-driven cooperation, which states that we basically are not going to impose our own considerations of how things should be. Rather, we are going to respond to the demands of our partner countries. non-prescriptive institution building, wherein we are not going to dictate the terms, rather it will be a partnership based initiative. So basically you need to see, when it comes to the mapping part, that here is the Strait of Malacca, which is a global choke point. Then you need to see the 10-degree channel and the 6-degree channel. So 6-degree between the Indian UT of Andaman and Nicobar and the Strait of Malacca, and the 10-degree channel between the Andaman Islands and the Nicobar Islands. The next topic that we are going to take up is that of cloudbursts for our prelims examination. So basically what is happening, there have been extreme rainfall events in the recent past across multiple states in the Himalayan region. This make this understanding of the cloudburst event very important for our prelims examination. So what is the technical criteria? That whenever there is going to be a rainfall of 10 centimeter or 100 millimeter or more in 1 hour, in a localized area of 20 to 30 square kilometers, it will be classified as a cloudburst. A mini cloudburst is being proposed. The limit will be 5 centimeter of rainfall in 1 hour in the same area of 20 to 30 square kilometer. So what is the mechanism in which this phenomena is happening? So the associated cloud type here is that of cumulonimbus cloud. Now these clouds you must have read in your static, they have a vertical extent which is very high. In certain cases it can even be up to 15 kilometers. So the convection and the orographic lifting is taking place. So whenever warm moist air which is laden with moisture, it is coming from this area, it is being lifted because of the physical barrier which is present, which is this mountain in this case, and it is taken upwards by a rapid updraft. So while it is going up, there is a process which is also taking place due to the cooling down of the air, which is the process of condensation. So whenever the rapid updraft cannot take further this wind beyond a certain extent, then in that case it can lead to sudden outburst of all the moisture that is there, leading to heavy rainfall in a localized region. Sometimes the regions in the vicinity, they could be completely dry, there could be no rainfall in them, but it is highly intense and localized rainfall that is taking place at one area. And the burst, this is our point of concern. Now why are the high altitude mountainous regions, they are the most vulnerable? Number one is because of the topography, because of the presence of these physical barriers like mountains. Then there is runoff instability. So what is happening, that whenever such a rainfall is taking place in such a region, there is a slope beyond this. This slope doesn't allow the penetration of this water into the groundwaters, ultimately leading to a lot of surface runoff that takes place, leading to a lot of devastation. Then there is also slight impact of climate change on this. Because of climate change, the temperature, they are becoming warmer. As a result, the moisture carrying capacity is also increasing for the air. Now this is not a major reason, but this is something that is leading to the repetition of such events more so in the recent times. Now comes the mission Mosam, which is an initiative launched by the Ministry of Earth Sciences, because in this concern what the ministries are doing, number one, we are expanding the Doppler weather radar network. We are right now focused upon increasing the number from 40 to over 90 radars. Then the AI and machine learning mechanisms in this regard, so that we can better predict when such incidents are expected to happen. Then also we are installing the AWS, the automatic weather stations, so that there is better observation that takes place at all times regarding the weather events. The next topic that we are taking up for our prelims considerations is this topic of Assam floods. This is something that we see every year appearing in the news. Despite that, we'll be focusing on certain aspects which will be important for our prelims examination. So first is the larger issue which is basically a combination of geography, hydrology and socio-environmental factors, which is leading to such kind of devastation, large-scale devastation that is taking place in Assam. First, the geomorphological dynamics. So what is happening here is, we need to understand is comprehensively that in this phenomena, first of all, the Himalayas, they are very young and fragile. So whenever we know the physiology or the geography wherein the Brahmaputra is coming, and it has its tributaries which are ranging from Bhutan, which are coming from Arunachal, which are coming from even say Tibet. As a result, there is a high amount of downpour of rainfall during the monsoons. Now this monsoons, due to the fragile nature of Himalayas, it carries on a lot of sediments with it. Now these sediments, they get accumulated in the river bed and they ultimately end up raising the river bed, leading to the flooding in the nearby areas. This is the largely the topics that we are discussing here. Upstream catchment runoff, which is taking place in the hilly regions of Nagaland, of Arunachal. Now all of these is being carried by the tributaries into the mainstream river. Then there is also an impact of climate change, wherein we know that the recently the monsoonal patterns, they are changing and there is sudden and heavy outbursts which are taking place. Then there is also the structural vulnerability, wherein the infrastructure is not robust to deal with such phenomena. Let us look at the Brahmaputra and its tributaries first. So it is coming from the Tibet area, entering Arunachal as Dibang or Siang. Then the left bank tributary, the Khao River, is of concern. Then there are several tributaries that are coming from different areas. These tributaries, the name of them you need to remember, which one amongst them are left arm tributaries, which amongst them are right arm tributaries. This is something you should be knowing. Then there are certain districts which are highly distressed in the Assam upper region. The names of them are mentioned here. Now, why is this region also significant for us historically? Because this has been the core region of the ancient Ahom kingdom. So whenever such an area is in news, you need to look at it from multiple perspectives, including say your geography, environment, history and all the other areas. So what is the mechanism we have to deal with such a happening? First is the IMCT, the Interministerial Central Team, which will be sent to the area to see the devastation, to kind of take an overarching view of the devastation that has taken place and what all measures can be taken or should be taken in such a scenario. This has been constituted by the Ministry of Home Affairs so that we can do the damage assessment on ground. Then comes the disaster relief funding architecture. Within this, the SDRF is the primary fund which will be taking money from to deal with such a crisis. Now within the SDRF, 90% is being contributed by the center and 10% by the states in the case of Northeast and the Himalayan states. If this fund also is not able to fulfill its purpose, then the NDRF, the National Disaster Response Fund, it will come into picture and it will supplement the SDRF in cases of severe disasters. So this was all for today's discussion. Thank you so much.